Okay, let's get this started with the OG Gundam. Featuring the beginnings of the rivalry between Amuro Ray and Char Aznable, iconic designs like the Grandpa Gundam and the Zaku, and the anti-war imagery that continues to be a center point of every Gundam series to this day, I don't see how this is anything but S tier.
While the influence of the series is undeniable, I don't know about S tier. Gundam shows its age quite poorly and suffers from poor pacing. I think B tier is the proper place for it.
That's a good point, but it is important to keep in mind that the series was aired in 1979. Judging it by today's standards for anime art and pacing is way too harsh. Plus, the OG's ability to create a cohesive and memorable plot without being able to rely on pre-established real robot tropes is commendable. Easy S tier.
Are you two drunk? The 79 series has horrendous pacing with Monster of the Week robot fights, and the movie trilogy makes almost all of the characters shallower than Joe's foreign policies. Not to mention it has bizarre dialogue and a bloated and annoying cast. Giving it anything above C tier is just idiotic.
As much as I hate to admit it, this lunatic has a point about both versions of the series having severe issues that make it hard to watch in 2023. Besides, everything this show does well is done better by other entries in the franchise. Put it in C tier Barack.
Sleepy Joe is spitting.
Are you two even listening to anything I've said? It is not fair to compare this show to 2023 standards, in fact.
LLL take. Why even make a tier list if it is not fair to compare the series to every other Gundam series? I swear, you just want to make this S tier because you don't want to admit that it is carried by how iconic everything about it is.
I'm not putting this absolute banger below high B tier. Next, we have the sequel, Zeta Gundam.
The original might have helped define the real robot genre, but Zeta is what defined what a Gundam series is. Far stronger anti-war messages, a hopeful but tragic story, deep characters on all sides of the conflict, morally gray governments, and experimental but restrained mech designs. S tier, no doubt.
No way you're trying to say this anime is S tier. It has dumb fights every single episode, comically evil Sunday cartoon-style villains, and idiotic characters that retcon their own character development every episode. This is high C tier at best.
Finally, an opinion from you that isn't bad, Barack. This show's reputation is hard carried by internet pseudo-intellectuals who analyze shows based on symbolism and messages without ever thinking about entertainment value.
I can't believe the awful takes I am hearing here. I'll admit it has some flaws, but the OST and iconic fights alone make this a classic.
I'll give you that, but we all know that you only like this anime because you can nap with Jill for half of any episode without missing any of the story.
Agreed. Sorry, Joe.
Whatever. Which series is next?
We finished the original trilogy with Char's counterattack.
What about Double Zeta?
We both know nobody has watched that garbage.
Oh, come on. You just don't want to give that anime the recognition it deserves because it's different from most other Gundam anime.
No, Joe's right. Not a single person has made it past the snooze fest that is its first 10 episodes.
I'll let you insult Double Zeta, but if you rank CCA as anything other than an S tier, I will make the Capitol riots look like a bunch of kids in a candy store.
Whoa there, Donald. No need to do that. The movie is an absolute hit. S tier without a doubt in my mind.
I can't believe you're agreeing with this Oompa Loompa, Joe. The movie throws you into the middle of a story with no proper intro, has a cast of annoying characters that don't act remotely like real people, and ends with completely unhinted at new type magic.
Of course, a pea-brain like you would think the intro doesn't explain Char's rebellion enough. It makes sense within the first 5 minutes of the film, plus the characters are symbolic. How do you not recognize that Quest being an Earthborn new type and following whoever shows her attention is a refutation of Char's philosophy that space noids will become new types and innovate to save humanity?
Refutation? Wow, I didn't know you knew a word with that many syllables.
Go die in a ditch, Joe.
All right, stop fighting, you two. And Donald, weren't you just complaining about how internet analysts that overly value the symbols and messages of a show are idiots? You're flip-flopping on this more than your campaign promises.
Don't try to get smart with me. I said those things are not more important than entertainment, and CCA is entertaining for its whole runtime.
This is taking forever, and I don't hate this movie enough to fight you for hours about this. I'm putting this low A tier, though. It is not S tier. Next, we have the 8th MS team.
This show is the easiest C tier of my life. It starts off strong and has a unique passion and charm, but the ending and romance elements are god-awful.
I'll admit that the romance is contrived at best, but the amazing animation, art, developed characters, and mech designs make this at least a B-tier Gundam anime.
I have to side with Barack here. The plot may be a little weak, but the anime just has so much life in every scene and has arguably the greatest robot fight ever animated with the goof. Not to mention that it is the best real robot entry the Gundam franchise has ever produced. This is an A tier that is held back by some bad story decisions.
I will let you give this a B tier, but so help me God if you give this A tier.
Fine, B tier it is. Next on the list is Stardust.
Another UC show. There's so much variety in the Gundam series.
I got to give it to Trump here. We've been on UC Timeline for a while now.
Honestly, that's fair. Let's look at the newest anime. G-Witch is an easy A tier for me. It manages to have a ton of fun and variety with its cast and mech designs, fantastic fight choreography, and a tight and impactful story. The only reason this isn't S tier is because Season 2 isn't out yet, and I don't know if it'll stick the landing.
The only reason you're giving this A tier is because you finally get to see your gay marriage laws enacted in Gundam now, too. This show is a C tier at best. The tonal change between the prologue and Episode 1 is downright insulting, and the main character acts like an autistic crybaby. I haven't even made it past Episode 3.
You want to vote on this show even though you're uninformed on most of it? Typical Republican.
Don't try to steal control of this conversation like you stole the election, Joe.
Behave yourselves or I will rank this show without you two.
Sorry, Barack, I couldn't help it. Honestly, I had the same reaction as Donald at first, but I fell in love with the show as it kept going. It starts off as a school life show, but the way it integrates more serious Gundam elements into that is incredibly impressive. The mix between the character-driven main narrative and the plot-driven elements cooking in the background is just perfect. I think it's borderline S tier.
I'll admit that I haven't seen the full anime, so I'll allow you to give this show an A, but only if we get to rate 00 after.
Deal.
00 is amongst the best entries for newcomers to the franchise and features some incredible mech designs and fights. If it wasn't for some pacing problems with Season 2, I'd give this S tier. Still a high A tier, though.
No debate here. This show slaps. I think the movie and its alien plotline feels a little disjointed from the series itself, but it's still an easy A tier to me.
We have total bipartisan agreement on that ranking. A.
Honestly, this jumping around between universes is getting a little tiring. Can we stick to UC from here?
1 minute of listening to your speeches, and anyone could tell that you can't keep track of more than 2 things at a time, you geriatric fart. No way you're confused already.
I wanted to continue UC earlier anyway.
We still haven't even talked about some of the most imaginative series like Turn A or G. Besides, UC is basically just side stories after CCA.
Don't forget about Hathaway and Unicorn. We still haven't even finished the main UC stories.
I don't have the energy to deal with you two fighting over the new type magic of unicorns, so we're ranking Hathaway next.
I must be getting old because I forgot about this certified banger. An amazing intro to a larger story with the most mature and grounded Gundam plot yet. Not to mention the way it shows off how terrifying mobile suits are to innocent civilians impacted me more than anything else in Gundam. S tier.
The OST, art, animation, and pacing of this movie are perhaps the best of any Gundam. The characters feel a little shallow, though, and the fight scenes are hard to follow and boring. I think this lacks a lot of the typical Gundam charm. This is a B-tier movie at its peak.
Joe, you're making me regret appointing you VP. This movie slaps. The fight scenes being hard to follow and not being heavily choreographed is part of the appeal of the movie. These aren't cool robots designed to appeal to young fans. They are weapons of mass destruction. The characters feel underdeveloped because this is the first movie in a trilogy.
Not a single cap detected. There's no way you're expecting the characters to finish their arcs in the first part of a trilogy or don't recognize how well handled the mechs are in this movie.
Maybe I'll appreciate this movie more when the 2 sequels are out, but until then, this is a B to me.
I can't believe you have taste this bad, Joe. This is my tier list, so it's going into S tier. Speaking of S tiers, next is another masterclass in how to make a good Gundam series, War in the Pocket.
Now you're speaking my language, Barack. This series is the perfect example of what a Gundam show should be. It has the most powerful anti-war message of any Gundam, is relatable to anyone who has lost a loved one, has gorgeous animation and art, an ending on par with Breaking Bad, and even criticizes the commercial nature of Sunrise and Gundam in general. This is peak Gundam.
I'll agree that this show is fire, but it is A tier at best.
A tier at best, you're going senile.
This is literally the perfect Gundam series. I'm not letting you try to convince Barack this is anything but S tier.
No shot, I am the senile one, you buffoons. This show has a boring middle that relies on every single person around Al having the IQ of a walnut. The start and end are strong, but the criticism of fans who focus on the robots rather than stories of each show is way too heavy-handed to be considered deep by anyone older than 15. Also, in the long run of the UC, this story means literally nothing. It doesn't even mean much to the 1-year war.
This series being a minor conflict that doesn't matter is part of the point. It shows how normal people are affected by frivolous wars and how futile combat is.
Joe's absolutely correct, and I'm putting this in S tier. Sorry, but you have an awful opinion on this anime.
This is a good Gundam anime, but it thinks it's way smarter than it really is. A tier.
Bad opinion, sorry.
I am tired of you controlling the tier list and using your alternative facts to describe each series you don't agree with me on. I am out.
It's getting late anyway. Let's finish this another time.
There are still over 30 shows to rank. This is going to take weeks.